Money is an illusion. So many of us have a powerful money wound, and we are calibrating our worth and our value by money or by how much we are doing. Well, in this video, I have an amazing guest, the brilliant, the beautiful Kate Northrup, the author of Do Less and Money, a Love Story. If you want to hear about how you can heal some of that money wound and regulate your nervous system and do less, then stay tuned. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Tricia Carr, and I call this channel Charmed Life. I call it Charmed Life because I genuinely believe, feel, and have a lived experience that the very essence of living and being an incarnated spiritual being is magical, is a charmed existence, that's what life really is. It is a magic trick. So, as we head into this conversation, I want to invite you to like, subscribe, share, comment, and click that little bell so you get notifications. This is from my podcast, Charmed Life, and I have on the amazing Kate Northrup, best-selling author and coach. Kate is really just a luminary in the field of wellness and of living your best life. As an entrepreneur, best-selling author, and mother, Kate Northrup has built a multimedia digital company, a platform called the Origin Company, that reaches hundreds of thousands globally. Kate is committed to supporting ambitious women to light up the world without burning themselves out. Kate teaches data and soul-driven time and energy management practices that result in saving time, making more money, and experiencing less stress. She's the author of Money, a Love Story, and Do Less, and the creator of the Do Less Planner. I'm so excited, so lit up by this conversation. We talk about regulating the nervous system. We talk about her spiritual practice. We talk about the lunar cycles. So I invite you to enjoy this conscious conversation with Kate Northrup, and I will chat with you on the other side. Kate, I am so excited to bring you into this world that I've created, the Charmed Life world, because I feel like you inspire so much magic, so much charm, and you've been doing it in a way, as like a pioneer, because I know you've had this illustrious entrepreneurship and been of service for such a significant amount of time. So I'm deeply, deeply honored to have you here. Welcome, and can you just get everyone into the brilliant work that you're doing now? If you like to start there, that would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. And um, anyone who talks about, having a charmed, magical life and sort of mystical experience, I love all of that. So I really ground women in healing their relationship with time and money, specifically through the embodied experience of living here in a body on planet Earth. So, nervous system regulation, energetics, feeling states, and really creating heaven on earth through accessing the power available in our bodies.
That's incredible. It seems like it's been triply tenfoldy more important since we had this whole world event of the pandemic and everything, and a lot of shift in our lifestyles. But you've been doing this kind of work for even before this kind of crazy stuff came up. So that's amazing. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I've been at it for a long time. I've been really catching up to the fact that I'm not new. I've been at it in some shape or form, really since for like 20 years, but in its current iteration close to that since 2009.
Okay. But you started by blogging, right? You're an amazing writer. I love the books that you've published. I feel like they really do heal the money wound that we all seem to have. And women really, oh my gosh, women really have a money wound in our modern society. But your books are so healing, and all of your writing. But is that right? Do I have that right? As I'm recalling it, you
Yeah,
started as a
you're
blogger.
correct. I started as a blogger and I actually had a different business and I started my blog as simply an outlet for creative expression.
Mm.
I didn't know that a blog was really like a business strategy. And then I started making money from it and I was like, "What? This is amazing." So yeah, that's how it got started. I think I started my blog in 2010.
Mm, that's really great. I mean, that formula is really the way to build a magical life is to just do something that you love and somehow people pay you. That's great.
Yeah, I it's funny because things I think we come back to things over and over and
Mhm.
over again from a higher level of consciousness. It's
Sure.
really this upward spiral, this upward cycle, and I have been revisiting that a lot as I think about abundance, and I'm revisiting my first book, Money a Love Story, and my first course, the Money Love course, and I'm updating and thinking more about money for the first time in a decade. And there really is that element of creative spark and creative expression, and the way in which power in our bodies and life force shows up as creative expression, and how creativity is a way that we can make abundance manifest in our life, and that abundance really likes to follow creativity because it's really that pulse of divine life. And so, yeah, it is interesting just thinking about how that was something I wanted to do just for fun and just because it felt good. And then it turned into a six-figure business actually relatively quickly, which is also kind of cool because I never took a course on like six-figure blogging or anything like that. Even though if you teach that, that's great.
You kind of wrote the course for
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, it was like write about what you feel like and then talk about things that excite you was sort of
Mhm.
my formula.
And I love that you are serving women, and especially who are needing to find that balance, that center point again. Because I mean, I think you work very much with the principles of nature, as I can see in Origin Company, and I do too. And so I'm like, I find so much resonance with your work. We need to remember that we are nature, and creativity. I mean, nature is creation, is creativity. So somehow being able to tap into that, what is your genuine, it's what we're looking for. Purpose is your creativity, the font of your creation, right? And I just love that you're helping people who are already, like, I don't know, entangled in the web of all of the craziness, being pulled in different places, and starting with the simple part of that, like nervous system regulation. Can you expand on the importance of that, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So, you spoke about how we are nature. And it's really important to realize that our bodies are literally made of nature. Like we are
Mhm,
nature, we are animals.
mhm,
And our bodies are wired for survival, which is such a beautiful adaptation. So grateful for that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. But very similar, or literally not similar, the exact same thing as how an animal in nature is wired for survival. That's how our nervous systems work. And so our nervous systems are a whole series of nerves and connections running from our brain all throughout our body that allow us to make micro adjustments without having to think about it. It's a very do less system,
mhm.
very convenient that we don't have to be thinking about constantly, like, oh, how can I balance on this chair so I don't fall? You know what I mean? Like there's so many things that are just happening. Thank goodness we're breathing without having to think about it. Our
Mm,
hearts are beating without having to think about it. Our temperatures are regulating. There's a lot happening. Beautiful system. We have what's called a range of resonance. So, one of my
mhm,
nervous system healing teachers, Tel Darden, calls it a range of resonance. Other people call it a range of tolerance. And so, that range of tolerance is kind of how our ability to stay in homeostasis in the face of change.
mhm,
So we have all these kinds of events that happen. You can be driving down the street, and I live in Miami. The drivers here are completely wild. And so I could be driving down the street and somebody just decides to, make a left hand turn from the right lane would be a very common occurrence. And so that is a moment of stimulus in my life. And my range of resonance with my nervous system is my nervous system's ability to have my body experience something and then be able to come back into a feeling of safety and homeostasis, basically. And so when we have a nervous system that was developed in an environment where there was not a consistent source of safety and security, which most of us have some sort of experience from our childhood where there was chaos or trauma of some kind or a lack of stability or not able to depend on things. And so our nervous system set point can be for drama. It can be for stress and pressure, because what we experienced at home growing up is what feels like home to us.
Yeah.
And so our nervous system will unconsciously recreate scenarios that feel normal, but they're not necessarily healthy. So back to the example in traffic, our range of resonance is our ability to just basically like have an event happen and then come back to homeostasis. But it's impacted the thermostat of our nervous system is impacted greatly by our early childhood experiences. And if you've had big T traumas, little T traumas, and then we've all had collective traumas and then ancestral traumas, all of that impacts it. So it's quite the web of intricacy. But the take home message is we can always change our thermostat. And the more we expand our range of resonance, the ability to feel safe and secure, essentially, regardless of what is happening in our external environment, now this is the part that is really, I just like put together. No one told me this part, but I'm pretty sure it's true. Which is the more our range of resonance expands, the more of a tuning fork we are for abundance.
Yeah.
Because as we increase our range of resonance, we increase our magnetism.
Yeah.
Our signal gets clearer and clearer. There's less friction, less static in the signal. So and there's a million different ways to heal your nervous system, which of course we can talk about if you want to.
Yes, I'm smiling and laughing because boy, synchronicity is just, isn't it beautiful? Isn't it amazing? And I'm experiencing it right now because this morning, before I came into the studio, my husband and I were talking about just literally that. And he was talking about, our cats are sitting here and I was talking about how cats they're mostly in alpha beta state. Yeah, I mean alpha brain state, I should say. They have a lot more alpha brain waves than humans do. And so we were just doing this compare and contrast. And I was saying how we are in fight flight way more often than we need to. And he's like, well, what's the evolutionary point of fight flight? I'm like, well, it's meant to be a trigger. Because when you're actually in danger, then you sink into gamma and you regulate very deeply, when you get into the Zen state, if you are running from a bear, you start to regulate to the bear, or when you're in traffic, as you're saying, if you actually are about to have an accident, we've probably all felt this. Like my arms relax really deeply.
Things get really
slow and
calm and focused and slow.
So that's not actually fight flight. Fight flight is supposed to be temporary trigger to move us forward into a deeper state. But we have an association because unfortunately, all the things you mentioned, maybe inheriting it energetically, ancestrally, systematically, and the way a lot of us are raised, that the reward or the acceptance of the family is you come home, the kid's playing video games, you're like, what are you doing? Get up, do your homework, and it's like the association that being accepted is also being in fear.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we are conditioned to sustain that, or your boss or the whatever else. And it's never meant to be sustained. It doesn't actually benefit us, but we're undoing a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it does take some undoing. It does take some undoing. There was a huge awakening that I had, actually, oddly, after I wrote Do Less, where there was this movement, which has continued, but it was early days of this movement. It was like, I want to say it was maybe fall of 2019 or something. I don't exactly remember the timing, regardless. More and more people were talking about productivity as a trauma response. And
Yeah.
I was just like,
Or
"Oh,
perfectionism too, you know?
yes, like
Mhm.
that's what it is. That's
Yeah.
what we're unraveling." And so I started to study the nervous system, and I started to study the ways that our default behavior shows up and the ways that our society rewards um, some toxic behavior. So it takes
Mhm.
some extra unraveling. It's, workaholism, for example, is one of the only addictions that is societally celebrated. And so we do have to I don't want to say we have to work harder to heal. We just have to be a little more devoted to the
Mm,
process to know that like the mainstream cultural signals are probably not the ones we want to be following.
yeah. And my old job, when I was in, like, a corporate job, every time I worked with salespeople and we would show up and I hadn't seen them in 6 months or something like that. I worked with so many different people on a daily basis, and every time I'd be like, "Hey, how you been doing?" And it was like the speech every time was, "Been working my ass off. I never take a day off. I work 16 hours a day." And I joke, I didn't actually say this to anyone, but I'm like, "And you had a heart attack last year, right? Like, how's that working for you?"
How's that working for you? Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
switch of discipline too. It's interesting because we think we're being disciplined by being highly productive, but I love to look at what the word discipline is about. The root word is disciple.
Mhm.
To whom or to what are you being a disciple? And so maybe we need to shift discipline to being a disciple to our well-being.
I love that. And one of the things that I talk about in my work is if you really want to get honest with yourself about what you are being a disciple to, take a look at your schedule.
Yeah.
And what we are doing with our time is what we are being a disciple to. And so
Yeah.
if you say what matters to you, that's great. But when you will look at your calendar, that's what actually matters to you, or that's
Yeah.
what you're voting for with your time. So if it's
Mm.
all work, great, just be honest about that and say work is the most important part of my life. But if you're saying, it's family, it's my health, it's my kids, it's the people I love, and those things are not on your schedule, then you just need to be honest with the fact that you're not in alignment.
Mhm. You can at least cut out some of that, the pain of the dishonesty within you. I mean, yeah, if your
Yep.
health is important, but you don't have time to move your body or to prepare sensible, healthy meals, or however you would get them, then it has fallen off the priority list, I guess.
Yes, and we come by that honestly.
Yeah.
So no judgment here. Like not at all, but it's wild. Okay, so you mentioned the pandemic earlier.
Hmm.
I am somebody who, I love to move my body. I was a dancer. I'm a trained yoga teacher. I'm trained in like every mind, body, fitness thing you can imagine. I just don't teach any of them. So, um, and and I was one of those people who really struggled. It was just like a daily struggle of I'm having trouble finding time to move my
Yeah.
body. And every day it was like, am I going to exercise? I don't have time. I have so much to do. Am I going to, it just went on and on and on. 2020 hit suddenly. So I had at that time a 2-year old and a 4.5-year-old. I was running my company, and like the face of the company, so wasn't somebody who could just like step away. And suddenly daycare was shut down, so I had no childcare, and I needed to make it all work basically in 4 hours a day. So I needed to get my work done that used to take about 8 hours in 4 hours a day because my husband and I were doing halfsies. And suddenly I started doing this workout called the class. I don't know if you've ever heard of the class.
No.
It's wonderful. Definitely incorporates, it's very nervous system aware.
Oh, cool.
And I suddenly had time to to move my body for an hour every day and also be with my kids and also get my work done because there was something about healing my nervous system through that work that allowed me to break out of the limiting pattern of telling myself I didn't have time, which
Mm.
is just outdated programming.
Yeah.
So it was I didn't like try to overcome the habit. I didn't start a daily, habit of moving my body every day, even though you could totally do that. But I find that my most lasting habit changes have come as a byproduct of nervous system work, not as something that I've embarked on from my brain, being like, now I'm going to form a new habit. The habits just happen by themselves when they're being planted in a substrate of that range of resonance, increasing
Mm.
my capacity to feel safe no matter what's going on around me.
So, and the nervous system regulation and the resonance to the capacity to feel safe really speaks entirely to your state of being. Being is what causes doing. It's not the other way around. We think that doing is what makes our life better. We
Mm.
completely forget about the being aspect of it. I had a similar, somehow before the pandemic, I had put on some, extra weight and also was moving my body less and less and less and less and less. And so, and then the stress of all of it. And I was like, I know how to do this. I've done it a million times and I prefer and I like and I enjoy, but it wasn't happening.
Mhm.
So I had to change my state of being. And then the doing just happens.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so
Mm.
true. We talk about that in the work I do around money, that the lie that, again, we all sort of believe on some level is that what's going to solve our problems is if we just make more money.
Mhm.
But I know many, many, many people and have been in this place before where no matter how much more money I make, I still feel fearful and anxious about
Mm.
money. So just like adding more money to a fearful and anxious soil
Mm.
just adds fertilizer to it, as opposed to changing state. So finding that state of calm, finding a state of abundance, finding a state of gratitude, and then witnessing how the doing shifts, how the habits shift. Because what the sort of soil we're planting the seeds of behavior in really matters.
Mm.
It really
Mhm.
matters. How we're doing something and how we're showing up matters, I think, more than what we're doing from an
Mhm.
energetic level.
Yes. The yes, money is a strange partner. Because I mean, I feel like I'm in, as you were talking about how we're kind of, I don't remember how you said it, but essentially the spiral
Mhm, the
journey of
upward spike
healing.
upward spiral, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in a place where I'm like, "Oh, I think money is mean and ugly and dirty." I still have some of that in there, and I think that's a lot of us can relate to that in the money wounding. I would love to I would love for you to heal us a little bit if you don't mind my asking. Give us some of the energetics of abundance and money and how it can be our friend instead of a an abusive partner, you know?
Yes, absolutely. So, money really is made up.
It's an illusion. I and
Money
this
is
is
made
another
up.
this is another synchronicity. I don't wanna interrupt.
Fine.
This morning, I delivered to my community, my platform, a fairy attunement where they're like, "Hey, money's an illusion. Why not color it the illusion that you want?" So,
That's
yes, money
cool.
is made up.
Yeah, money is an illusion. So
Mhm.
that's cool. I mean, the truth is, on some level, we're all an illusion.
Yeah.
We are all just bouncing around energy, and it's an illusion that, like, matter is an illusion.
Mhm.
Um, which we don't really have to go there today, but
I know our minds are like
I'm just saying.
boggling boggling by the
We
second.
literally don't really exist. Okay.
Yeah.
But money really doesn't, because,
Mhm.
thousands of years ago, people just kind of got together and they were like, instead of trading a sheep for a cow, if I don't want a cow that day, maybe I could just trade a sheep for something that's a stand in for what I would value. So then I can go down to the market and get some squash
Mhm.
or whatever. Right. So it became a stand in. So money, just currency, became a stand in for what we value. So we could trade value for value.
Mhm.
So we really need to understand that money is an inherently emotional topic, because what we value is an inherently emotional part of our lives. And that's beautiful. So anyone who tells you to take the emotion out of money is actually super disconnected from the truth of money. Markets, hello, are completely connected to emotional states of humanity. When
Mhm.
we are going through fear cycles and contraction cycles as humans, the market drops.
Yeah.
When we are going through cycles of, and this PS like can be completely manipulated by the media and the government. So that's also all an illusion.
Sure.
Um, but at least in our daily lives, knowing that money is just made up. Okay. So if money is just made up, maybe I could give it less power
Mhm.
over my life and over my state of being. We get to choose our state.
Yes.
And when we are in an aligned state of feeling safe now, of feeling grateful now, we automatically expand into a state of abundance. And that abundance doesn't have to come from how much money is in our bank account. You and I both know people who experience an incredibly abundant life and have a relatively low income.
Mhm.
And we also know people who have an incredibly high income and experience a life of lack and limitation.
Yeah.
It is a choice, but it's not always just a mental choice. So that's where the money mindset work in the personal development world, I think, has done us a disservice because we didn't understand, right? When I wrote my book, Money, a Love Story, no one was talking about the nervous system. No one was talking about somatic healing. No one was talking about trauma. Or maybe they were, it just wasn't nearly as common of a conversation. Now we're understanding, oh, you can't just think your way into a new state. What lives in the body lives in the body. We cannot think our way into healing. We cannot think our way into moving something out of the body. We have to feel our way.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so when it comes to money, because money is just energy and because emotions are just energy, we can really work with that, just like what I was saying, our range of resonance to expand our capacity to feel safe, worthy, grateful, abundance right now. Right now. Like right now, let's do it. What is something around wherever you are, if you're driving, listening to this, if you're cooking dinner, what is in your current environment or in your current life that's something that could tap you into a feeling of gratitude?
Mhm.
For me, I've got these 3 pens. They're just sitting on my desk. They all write really well. And I really love them. And
Yeah.
they're a symbol of my creative expression. I love to
Mhm.
write. All of these are full of ink. It's really abundant. Like this represents to me just tremendous abundance and gratitude. So when we tap into that, then we're in the vibration of plenty.
Yeah.
And that is available always. On the level of nature, nature is an incredibly abundant system, right? One tree is not trying to take up less of the nutrients or take up less oxygen or less of the carbon dioxide in the case of trees, so that another tree can have more. Like there's not this duking it out for, right? In fact, the more and more we learn about the mycelial network and everything happening underneath the surface, the more we understand that it's actually kind of an illusion that any of the trees are separate to begin with
Mhm.
because they're all connected. That's true of human beings too. Marianne Williamson says this thing that we are all just waves in the same ocean. Like we are not separate. We're just different expressions of the same ocean. So when we get into this feeling of like, I have this, somebody else doesn't, or somebody else has this, that means I can't.
Mhm.
That's the illusion of separation. That's when we're buying into the illusion that money is real. It really is just this symbol of energy exchange. And what's true is that there's more than enough for everyone. And what's the lie is that there's lack and that there's not enough. Now, we do have 3D systems of oppression and systemic inequity that do make that seem like super, super duper real because that's the real lived experience of
Mhm.
human beings. And yes, we can tend to that and address it and acknowledge it and and work to right harms. And we don't want to focus all of our energy and attention on inequity and the lack, because when we do that, we are further beating the drum of continuing to perpetuate a lived reality that none of us are interested in anymore. Like, none of us wants to live in a system of profound inequity. And so it's more important to live sort of the sci-fi reality, like live into the desired future right now, and do what we can to create systems of equity and abundance right now to heal the past, to heal the past illusions of separation and the past illusions of lack. So this is a lot of things I said, but
I love them all. Yeah. And the thing is, the separation feels so bad. It is not inside what our organism, what our nature wants to be acceptable resonance. Separation feels bad because it's not true. Competition,
separation feels bad because it's not true.
it's a lie. And your body, your nervous system, your energy, your emotions are saying no. And that's what that bad feeling is. That's why loneliness
Mm.
feels so bad, or, lack of any kind feels so bad. I got this picture in my mind when you're talking about, over focusing on the, let's just say, anecdotal bad things, because I mean, all of the lived experiences happening for one person, when it's happening to one person, in a sense, we call that anecdote. But of course, when it's systemic, then it's becoming more collective. But at any rate, it becomes more empirical then, yes, of course. The resonance as like a fire, and it's like the life force resonance is a fire, and we have to toss the kindling of the things that we need to dismantle or
Mm.
transmute. But if
Mhm.
we tossed too much of it on it at one time, then we're going to smother the fire,
Mm.
you know? So we have to kind of allow the natural process as we're untangling, unwinding. I think that's a good, maybe the reason that's coming through is because we feel so sometimes overwhelmed by the healing that we have to do. And really, it can happen in the moment, feeling a little bit better. And that helps to regulate the nervous system. And that is a healing moment. It is actually changing and shifting um, well, I guess that resonance state that you're talking about, the acceptable state of resonance. Yeah.
It is.
Spectrum. Hmm.
Yeah, totally. And you know what creates systems of oppression and inequity is lineage of trauma.
Yeah.
And so when one person heals a little bit of that, they are actually making a pretty seismic change,
Yeah.
because their body is saying, it ends with me
Hmm.
and I'm not perpetuating this. And so this work like really matters, because if we didn't have all these traumatized people, we wouldn't have war. We wouldn't have people trying to hoard all the power and control other people. We would have a sense of safety and trust and love, because our natural state is safety and trust and love. And so this work does really matter, and I love what you're saying of that like changing state, and being at a trigger point or in a moment of intensity, and then choosing grounding,
Hmm.
choosing breath, choosing opening the heart, choosing taking a beat instead of lashing out. Like, all that stuff, I really want to turn it back to the larger context, that it makes a huge difference. Like, yeah, it feels good to the one individual for sure, but we're not separate.
Yeah.
So that's the illusion. It's not just you. It's not just me. It's me and my babies, and it's me and my neighbors, and it's me and the people at school, and it's me and my friends, and it's me on the people that I talk to on the internet. And each of our states has a specific vibration. If it's strong enough, if we're strong enough in that vibration, if we keep choosing it over and over and over again through not only our minds, but more importantly, our bodies and our resonance,
Hmm.
we can literally change other people's. Like, they will join us on that frequency if ours is steady enough. We know this. When somebody walks into a room and they're just like in a bad mood or just have bad energy, like, it just feels terrible and you don't want to be around them. But when somebody walks in and they are just feeling themselves and they're like charming and wonderful, you just want to be around them and the whole room changes and it just feels so lovely. We do have the ability to uplift or really depress everyone around us, and we can use that power for good or not. But that really is the healing capacity that we have. So it's for us first and foremost. And then the great news is we can't help but have a positive impact when we choose that.
And you know, it being for you is so important to realize, because I think there's sometimes we think, oh, the highest vibration is the best one and it wins. But no, it's like you said, the steadiest. And so
Yeah,
if we,
it is the steadiest.
yeah, it's the one that insists, the one that says, no, I will stay, or yes, I will stay, I guess. I remember this one story came to mind of my own life where I went to, again, in my old job, and I was going to a business meeting lunch, and I had been high vibing. I meditated, listening to whatever I was listening to in the car. I was happy as can be, and I like these people. And I show up, and they were all sour faced, and I felt myself choose that.
Mm.
I felt myself go, "Oh, I better not be happy because they're all unhappy," and I relented. I let go of it, and I felt like dog crap afterward because I really, I'm telling I'm convicting myself. I chose that. I had a high vibe, but I didn't keep it steady. I chose to give it over because I get my conditioning thinking that if I'll be rejected by the group,
Right, which is
and
real.
that's death.
Like, that's also real. I mean,
Hmm.
we have these wounds of being, because there is like a negative pleasure we get from having commiseration.
Yeah.
And it's a societally learned behavior, again, from childhood, that like gathering around hardship gives you a sense of belonging.
Hmm.
And that when you are, tall poppy syndrome, crabs in a bucket, right? When you rise into a different way of being, then that's really confronting for other folks who don't have the resources, who don't have the wherewithal, who are just committed to their suffering, whatever, right? And so it is true. Like, we do lose relationships when we choose not to be in a state of drama all the time, or not to be in a state of suffering. So that's real. But then we also need to ask ourselves, like, did I want that relationship to begin with?
Right.
If this relationship was required me to shrink, is that somebody I want to have in my life? And the only way that we can consistently um uplift others is by choosing the steadiness
Hmm.
of our own state of being. And they can either join us, which sometimes they will, or they won't. But at least we've chosen that state, because we are never going to help anybody by shrinking.
Right.
100% of the time,
Uh,
it doesn't help.
I know how Esther Hicks says that. Abraham Hicks says, "You can never get sick enough to make someone else well." It's
It's
such a
just
simple way to
true.
say.
I mean, it's just true.
Yeah.
And you can never get poor enough to help someone else be wealthy.
Right.
It does, like, that's not how the money system works. And so that's what so many people are operating, as though, like, if they have more, someone else will
Yeah.
automatically have less. But it's not, money is made up. It's not a zero sum model. It literally doesn't work like that. The United States, between the years 2020 and 2021, printed 40% of the money
Yeah.
ever printed in all time. It
Right.
is
We haven't
literally
had gold
just
standard in
made up.
forever.
Yeah, which is not good for the economy, but that's like a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Money is also completely made up.
Hmm.
So we just get to choose, what
Yeah.
economic state am I going to live in? Because there's
Yeah.
always an exception.
And the spirit is sort of whispering in my ear, and they're saying the thing that I'm leaving out of the story that was available to me that could have at least offered a bridge is compassion. I could have had compassion for where they were, yet also held my state and seen if there was some way that there
Mhm.
was healing between their, if there was a healing resonance. But I abandoned that. I took shame on instead. I decided to make myself
Mm.
smaller. Yeah.
Yeah, compassion is always available.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
I want to talk about Origin Company, your Origin Company. And I'm saying it, and I'm saying
Yeah.
it like my mom would say, I want to talk about the Origin Company.
It's perfect. I love it.
Moms either add or delete articles where they don't belong. So anyway,
Yeah,
I'd love
yeah,
to hear
yeah.
about your company.
Let's talk about the Facebook. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so the Origin Company is my online learning platform where I
Mhm.
bring the tools of cyclical living, feminine energy business principles, um, money mindset, money nervous system healing, money embodiment work, at my mastermind. So it's just kind of like all the things that we do happen over at the Origin Company. And it's really about this core principle of if we tap into the power of our bodies, the origin, right? Like where we
Mm.
actually came from is women's bodies. And when
Mhm.
we tap into the deep wisdom of our origin, everything's possible. We tap into our greatest power in the most sustainable, life giving way. So that's what the Origin Company is all about. I have a Origin membership for feminine energy business principles, a do less
Mm.
planner for people who want to live their life in cyclical time, which is the truth
Yeah.
of who
Yes.
we are, and align our productivity and our time management with seasons and cycles. And then, we offer master classes and all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that do less planner with the cycles because when we hit some kind of a wave where it's a low tide in, let's say, finances or whatever we consider is a source of abundance or resource. Low tide is natural and high tide is natural too. And talk about another illusion is our calendar, 9 to 5, 7 days a week. Oh, sure, there's like holidays that we can take 4 days off, or if some people only get like 2 days off around the high holidays that we honor. And then fortunately, we do have things like kids go to school at a certain time and then they're out. And that adds a little bit, but it's still not real. It's still not organic. It's still not how real natural cycles work. I would love to hear more about what is the Do Less Planner like? It sounds fantastic.
Oh, well, I mean, it's right here. It's what I use.
Okay.
I created it because it's the system that I use. But
Mhm.
it really has these different sections for tapping into the truth of what's happening with your body. So, for example, in the weekly spread, it asks you to fill out like what's happening. Where are you in your menstrual cycle? For example, if you are
Mhm.
having a menstrual cycle, what's happening with the moon? Are we in a waxing, ramping up phase, or are we in a waning, winding down phase? And just those questions alone can really help us understand, oh, there are 4 different phases that I go through every month, whether they're in concert with my menstrual cycle or in concert with the lunar cycle. One of them is for rest and reflection. One of them is for planning and initiation. One of them is for connecting and being visible. And one of them is for focusing and completing, so that we can just begin to get into agreement with our cyclical nature and stop trying to force ourselves to be in a linear model where we're the same every day, because we literally weren't built that way. It's just like that's a lie. And so that's really the core of the Do Less Planner. And then you'll love this part we have on the weekly spread, creating the universe's to-do list. So instead of
Mm.
starting with your to-do list, you start with the universe's to-do list and
Mhm.
really delegate anything that you want support with from, the powers that be, from your ancestors, from spirit,
Mm.
from the universe, from the cosmos. Really getting into this place of like, it's okay for me to receive. I get to have divine support and human support, and my worth is not determined by how much I get done alone.
Mm. Yes.
Alone meaning by myself, but also just like alone
Yeah,
at all.
value. That's the thing that we haven't mentioned is value. Who we are, how our worth or our value. And money is not connected to that in any way. Our worth and value is inherent, is innate because God or spirit universe created you because you were breathed into being.
Yeah.
And that's what we get to recapture. And I'm going to be a little crude. Make money just your bitch. It's just one of the things that you include in your life.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be the center. And when, of course, the irony or sort of the cosmic joke is that the more we feel our inherent worth, the more we plug into source with a capital S and really get that money
Mhm.
is not our source,
Mm.
the easier it is to make money.
Sure.
Because it's just sort of like less attachment, more creative flow, more opening, more surrender, more trust, more creativity. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be like this centering force. But when we really get that our value is inherent, then we get to play. And
Hmm.
that's really where abundance comes from.
Yeah. With the lunar cycling, I'm a lunar lady. I love the moon, and I love to think about it as like you're saying, maybe your natural menstrual or your moon cycle. There's also the universal one. Sometimes those coincide, sometimes they don't, but
Yep.
it's like the energy that you're bringing the waning gibbous to the waxing crescent energy, and that's beautiful. So, and everybody else is bringing their different energies. I like that the book is actually paper too, because we actually have a stronger ideomotor response to writing with our hand, even though I rarely do it.
You
I,
know what?
I need to.
I am such an analog person. I really am. I am a list maker. I said I've got my pens on my desk. I love all of that. I do use my Do Less planner in combination with my Google Calendar, though.
Right. That's
So
I
I go a
I
little
do that
crazy.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a handwritten journal, so because I'm also trained in handwriting analysis and
Mhm.
interpretation. So I
Cool.
like to see what's going on sometimes, but then I also put things on the computer because it's easier to find it. I'm like, "What's that thing I wrote about the archangels that one time?" So I have to go through a paper book I'm never gonna find.
Well, and that's true. There's so many great like technologies and apps now that
Mhm.
can make all of that digitized. So, but yeah, we definitely don't want to rob ourselves of the experience of pen to paper
Mhm.
when at all possible because of what it does to our brains.
Because we're analog beings. I mean, we can't. I mean, I guess we're virtually meeting right now, but it's also really great to walk and sit in front of one
It
another
really is.
face
It
to
really is.
face.
And you can't replace that with
Yeah.
the digital, even though I'm so grateful. I mean, I run
Oh,
a
yeah.
100% online business. So
Right, right. I want to also ask you about your spiritual journey. We didn't really, I mean, like, what has that been like, and how has it fed directly into, I mean, just your life, your mission, your work? Would you mind sharing a little bit about how your spiritual journey, or did you have an awakening, or, what are some of those juicy details, if you don't mind, if it's not too
no,
personal?
yeah, no, it's great. I was raised in a really spiritual household. So I never had a moment of like, we're spiritual beings. Like I was raised, we celebrated the cross quarter holidays, winter solstice, summer solstice, the equinoxes. We did celebrate Christmas, but never in a particularly religious way. I knew growing up that Easter really had its roots in rituals of fertility.
Hmm.
So I was raised with a pretty earth based faith.
Hmm.
And in knowing that, my granny was a hiker, she wanted to be a park ranger, but that was not an available career for her um, at that time. So she had 6 kids, but on Sunday, she would go to the woods and say to my grandfather, "You go to your church, I'll go to mine." And he would take the kids to the Episcopalian church down the street and she would go to the woods. And I don't know if you've ever read the Celestine prophecy, but um, she could see the auras and the energy fields of trees, just like
Hmm.
in that book. And so that's the lineage I come from. I think, really like a lineage of witches on
Yeah,
some level. And
absolutely.
so, yeah, I've been doing moon rituals and reading tarot cards and praying and talking to my guardian angels since I can remember. And now I'm a mom. I have a 4.5-year-old and 7-year-old little girls, and it's hilarious. The other day, we were talking about how you know my body had made the kids and whatever. And my daughter, Penelope, my older daughter, was like, "No, mama, you didn't make me. God made me and then put me as a tiny, tiny egg inside your body. And then I grew there." And I was like, cool. So it's also just really fun to have little kids and see what they remember from
Yeah.
before they came into form. And also my oldest, one day she was in the tub with me and I was pregnant with with her little sister. And all of a sudden she just started telling me her birth story. And she was asking about her little sister and how's she going to come out. And I was like, and she was like, "Yeah, mama, here's what happened. It was really dark and I couldn't get out. And then all of a sudden, it was dark in there, and all of a sudden I jump out. And 'cause she had been born via an emergency C-section after a pretty long labor at home. And, I was like, "That's true. That is totally how you came into the world." And so I think, you know, my spiritual practice is wonder
Mm,
and just being open to the fact that, like, basically everything's a mystery and we basically know nothing.
yeah.
So that's that.
And that sounded like one of your daughters just
She did just come home from school, so, "Baby, I will be out in 2 minutes. I'll be right out, sweetie."
She's like, "You're telling my
About
story. I'm gonna contribute."
that. Yeah.
Well, you have, an amazing offering, that you are I would love for you to tell us about
Yeah, of
that. Yes.
course. So
Mhm.
I have a 3-day virtual experience coming up called Money Love the Revival, which
Mm.
is revisiting my initial course, the Money Love course, which I created a decade ago. I have a little visitor here. And I'm so excited about doing that because it's really taking people through the first steps of healing their relationship with money so that it is no longer a source of fear and anxiety for them, but really a source of abundance and calm and even joy and pleasure. So that is coming up, and you can find out everything about that over on my website, theorigincompany.co. So that's
Oh,
Money
okay.
Love the Revival. And it's a free event.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, that's so generous, so beautiful. What an amazing contribution. We have that in the show notes as well as all of the other information. Is there any last thing you've got a caller there. Your sweetie there. Is there any last thing you want to share with everyone as
She's
we
here in my office using the bathroom.
That's okay.
Um,
I love it. I like when the cats pop in the frame or
Yeah,
the dogs
here
are
we are.
barking or the
We're
little
just
kids come
here
in.
we are at home. Yeah, so I mean, the best place here's what I would say. I would say, like, the take home message, what I really want people to understand is, our worth is not determined by our productivity,
Yeah.
and our worth is not determined by how much money we have in the bank. And
Mhm.
when we can live from that place, knowing that our worth is inherent, as you said, everything everything opens up.
Mm.
So I hope that's been useful. It's been so fun to talk to you. And certainly, if anybody wants to connect, you can connect with me on Instagram. That's a great place, at Kate Northrup. I always love to say hi to folks who are new to the community.
Oh, well, thank you again. I mean, I could just beam and beam the rest of the day. I'm gonna keep this vibration steady. So thank you for
Awesome.
for
Love
this,
that.
Kate. Really such an honor to have you on. Thank you.
Sorry about the toilet flushing noise in the
I think it's perfect. I
just
love it.
keeping it real.
We're gonna keep it real. We're gonna keep it grounded.
Thank you.
What a light and how grounded and genuine. Everything that just feels right to my nervous system occurred in that conversation. I hope you felt it as well. I hope you had the opportunity to breathe and to open your heart. I hope you felt the option to just give yourself the state of grace to pivot just a little bit and I hope that you check out all of the offerings that Kate has. I mean, her books are very healing, very soothing, and the Origin Company is offering so many opportunities to be able to find that not just balance, but the thriving that we really are all here to experience. Make more money and do less. Who doesn't want that? That is more natural. That is more accurate. That's why we all want that kind of freedom because as we said, that separation feels bad because it's an illusion, because it's not true. Freedom and that flow of being able to do less and make more money. And, that's real. That's natural for us. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Once again, I want to invite you to like, subscribe, share, comment, and click the little bell so you get notifications for when I post more videos. Also, when I go live, because I live stream here, take questions, give readings, and we have a lot of fun. Also, find me on Instagram. And of course, the podcast. You could listen to the full audio version of the podcast, this episode, and many others. And that's Charmed Life with Tricia Carr. And that's what I have for you today. I hope you continue to shine your light on our beautiful world. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.